And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show here on Newsmax TV. By now, you've already heard about the concerning words of left-wing radical Ilhan Omar. Last week, this leftist tweeted this out. Quote, "We must have the same level of accountability and justice for all victims of crimes against humanity. We have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the United States, Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban," end quote. Now, in this tweet, Omar clearly equated the United States and our ally Israel to terrorists. But all it took was Omar stating, "That's not what I was really doing," and then she won over Nancy Pelosi. Here's Pelosi trying to take back her condemnation of Omar's tweet.
Since all of that happened, she and others don't seem to be letting this go. Rashida Tlaib, one of her close friends, member of your caucus, tweeted the following. "Freedom of speech doesn't exist for Muslim women in Congress. The benefit of the doubt doesn't exist for Muslim women in Congress."
Okay, you know,
House Democratic leadership should be ashamed.
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
We did not rebuke her. We thanked, acknowledged that she made a clarification. No, I'm not. I'm responding that the Congresswoman Omar is a valued member of our caucus.
Valued member. This isn't the first time Pelosi and her leadership have explained away Omar's anti-Semitic, anti-American statements. Pelosi and left-wing leadership have also looked the other way from the antics of the other squad members, AOC, Rashida M.F. Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, and Cori Bush. But it begs the question, why is it, if you hate America, you hate Jews, you hate cops, you hate whites, you hate liberty, you hate prosperity and freedom, why does the Socialist Democrat Party say, "We welcome you"? Putting our insane political enemies on the proverbial couch. That's our focus in tonight's preamble. I thought long and hard over the weekend as to why a significant number of Democrat voters, who I do not believe hate all of the things their elected leaders do, continually vote for such a political party. I think Freud himself would have a tough time with this one. Perhaps one reason why there's a disconnect between the socialists and their voters is the dishonesty of a powerful ally, the mainstream press. The majority of the press makes sure not to report on the depravity of devolving Democrats. And if they have to report on the Democrats' hate-filled policies and attributes, they do so in such a way as to leave their audiences believing that the revelation is really, no big deal, or that Democrats' behavior is all Trump's fault. We saw evidence of this over the weekend as Biden, after embarrassing our nation all weekend long with his forgetfulness, his weakness, and apologetic rhetoric, decided to hold an open press conference, or so we were told.
I'm sorry, I'm going to get in trouble with staff if I don't do this the right way. Jennifer Jacob, Bloomberg.
Now, far from being an open press conference, Biden let the press around the world know that his staff instructs him on which media organizations to call on. Now, why would Biden's handlers do such a thing? Why would Biden get in trouble with his staff if he called on other news agencies that were not approved by his staff? Perhaps Bloomberg and others have given their softball questions to Biden's team ahead of time. Perhaps Bloomberg and other biased news outlets have assured the Biden team that they will pose no serious or difficult questions to a man who is clearly incapable of handling unscripted questions. Well, we'll have more on this a little bit later on in the program, but what a contrast between Biden and President Trump. You know, I remember when President Trump, he would take questions from the biased press for hours, calling on CNN, Bloomberg, NBC, all the rest of the biased press corps. Now, while Biden was on his foreign trip to the G7 conference, the socialist president of France, Emmanuel Macron, let the world know why he was so delighted to have a leftist like Biden in the White House.
We have to deal with this pandemic and the COVID-19. We have to face a lot of challenges, a lot of crises, climate change, and for all these issues, what we need is cooperation. And I think it's great to have the U.S. president part of the club and very willing to cooperate. And I think that what you demonstrate is that leadership is partnership.
All right. What you're going to have to forgive is that little socialist there. He obviously has no idea what leadership is. Partnership has little to do with leadership, as great leaders are often alone. Oftentimes, leaders earn a partnership after charting a bold course forward. Nobody thinks that Joe Biden or his cronies who won the White House are that. But let me explain Macron's comment about having the United States back in the club. As mentioned, Macron is a socialist, as is most of the EU. When President Trump was forcing them through leadership to keep their commitments on mutual defense, that really bit into the agenda of socialists like Macron. Macron and others were used to diverting their money for defense to purchase votes from their population. Macron is overjoyed to have an America Last guy like Biden back so that Biden's team can screw the American taxpayer by forcing us to pay for the military defense of socialist nations in Europe. Macron's comments were a direct slap at President Trump, who responded through a statement this weekend. Quote, this was a quote by the president of France. He and many other leaders before him in France and throughout Europe were ripping off the United States like never before. We were treated very unfairly with horrible trade deals and paying for a large portion of their defense. Now, how many of you Democrats out there elected your socialist leaders to defend foreign nations so that their citizens can get more socialism through public benefits, all the while their degenerate leaders like Macron claim credit? Now, I'd like at least to have a thank you from Macron to the American taxpayers, but we don't even get that. But in all honesty, we don't get that from socialists here at home either. So I continue to rack my brain as to why so many Democrats vote for a party that hates America and works to the benefit of foreigners at the expense of our own people. Why would Democrat voters vote for politicians who would lie to get a political advantage? President Trump put out a list over the weekend. This was a list that left-wingers used for political gain during Trump's time in office. They all happened to be a bunch of liberal lies. In a Save America PAC statement, President Trump called out what he said were the election year lies of big tech, the complicit media, and socialist Democrats seeking to win at all costs. Here's the quote. Have you noticed that they're all now admitting I was right about everything they lied about before the election, Trump wrote. Hydroxychloroquine works. The virus came from a Chinese lab. Hunter Biden's laptop was real. Lafayette Square was not cleared for a photo op. The Russian bounty story was fake. We did produce vaccines before the end of 2020 in record time. Blue state lockdowns didn't work. Schools should be opened. Critical race theory is a disaster for our schools and our country. Our southern border security program was unprecedentedly successful. President Trump, as always the case, was right. And look at what those lies have done to this country in 6 short months. We're now enduring massive inflation, harming minorities, women, and the working poor the hardest. We have multiple crises at the southern border, harming Americans and illegal aliens alike. As our military cuts back on defense, China expands their military spending. Biden is promising billions of our taxpayer dollars from the United States to nations all over this globe after a study by the Proceedings of the National Academies of Science revealed that China virus lockdowns, championed by Democrat socialist governors and D.C. bureaucrats, are responsible for destroying nearly 40% of small businesses since the virus was unleashed on our world. So why do Democrats vote for all of this? I think it's a matter of psychology. Now, if you have a left-wing extremist in your life, you know they aren't the happiest people in the world. In fact, they're downright miserable people. The left-winger is in a constant state of self-loathing. They don't see the good in others or in the United States because they don't see the good in themselves. So rather than trying to improve their lives, the typical left-wing extremist seeks to make everyone around them as miserable as they are. Whether it's Macron of France, Joe Biden, the biased press, or the lion's share of the Socialist Democrat Party. Like typical collectivists, they seek only to redistribute what they have. And boy, they got a lot of misery that they want to impose on all of us. That's about the only way I can think of to explain a vote for a socialist politician. Now, if you have any other ideas that explain Democrat votes, head on over to chrissalcedo.com and just drop me an email. Let me know.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.